All right, guys, Dr. Pearlman back with another video. And what I'd like to do is get right into a video today, a topic about squatting and deadlifting, and whether or not deadlifts and squats are in effect bad for your back or if they are actually something that is very beneficial. It is something that I hear a lot in the world of exercise science is about how the squat is like the best compound movement, or the deadlift is like the very best compound movement. You work all these muscle groups and it engages everything. And it's like when you think of powerlifting, there's a reason why they do, bench press, squat, and deadlift. And, whether it comes to hamstrings and core and lower back and glutes and loading and not lifting with your back, as opposed to lifting with your legs, and what does that look like when it comes to functional movement, you know, how can we how can we objectively, sort of quantitatively look at what is good and what is bad when it comes to these exercises, when you have to take into consideration that so many people get hurt and go to the chiropractor or go to the orthopedic doctor or go to a physical therapist or whoever because they've hurt their back doing a deadlift or a squat. And it's very easy to listen to me talk about that, or even hear myself talk about it right now and say, obviously that's bad form. Obviously it's bad form, or too many reps, or you're lifting too heavy. And oftentimes that is the case. The thing is it really a bad movement for your back? And I'm going to discuss it in sort of like two phases. So number one is, I don't think that inherently doing deadlifts or squats is actually bad for your back. I do think at a certain age, when the body's developed, that there is then sort of the green light to begin to do those types of movements in a sort of a mature body with weight. So I think that if you are a young, teenage or adolescent person who's training, whether it be at school or at home or on your own or whatever you're doing, I do think squatting and deadlifting, you should be going through the motions without weight. And I think that you should be doing it more in the line of getting good form, just good habit form, habitual good form. And the way that looks is by doing mobility work, by doing stretching, by doing a lot of calisthenics, things that are more along the lines of jungle gym workouts, body weight kind of stuff. I really do believe that if you can maintain flexibility and have a strong core at a young age, then there's really no need to be lifting like an insane amount of weight. Now, I know that's taboo for some people, especially in the world of football, let's face it, maybe even other sports now, because there are soccer players deadlifting in high school that I know that are 15 years old. I don't personally like it, and here's why. You have an immature, not developed physiologic, biomechanic, anatomic body with these, healthy, vascularized ligaments, tendons, bones, discs, everything. And they are straining out weight to what? Get stronger? Like, there's only a certain amount of strength they can get. If you ever see a minor league baseball player who's not yet 22, 23 years old, they're usually very thin. They have those high metabolisms. This is true. This is not me making shit up. And they're usually, very skinny until they're about 24, 25, 26. They start to fill out. And it's not just because they have money and they begin to eat more and they get on PEDs. It's actually because they're beginning to reach a level of maturity where, though they have vascularization still to muscle, their bones are now more mature and actually lack that vascularization, meaning they're prone more to injury. It takes longer to recover. So they need to now do progressive stability work, and they're sort of maintaining and building muscle as they age. As their metabolism slows down, they're able to put on more weight. This is a scientific fact, okay? I know it's a lot to digest, but it's scientific fact. So what you have is you have these bigger, bulkier, men that are aging, and we're just using like male athlete in the circumstance. And then you have, in the beginning, these high metabolism, go, using sugar for energy, sort of kids or adolescents, teenagers, that actually don't have that mature skeleton to be able to warrant the amount of stability and progressive loading that is required on a barbell. Phase two that I want to talk about is what actually happens to the body when you're squatting and deadlifting. And let's look at it from the perspective of if you're doing both of them the right way with good form. In the squat, The bar is on the back. Your body is going backwards, your knees are going out, your butt is going back, and you're actually loading your glutes and hamstrings with your spine slightly leaned forward. So on the side, it would be like a slight lean forward. What's interesting is that in the world of Olympic weightlifting, you don't do that. You're more straight up and down and you catch it in the front. And unfortunately, that has bled into the world of CrossFit and also just kind of visual learning for trainers and athletes alike, where they are actually straight up and down, staring high when they're squatting, and it's actually loading their lumbar spine, compressing the disc, rather than just loading the glutes, hamstrings, hips, pelvis. It was pressure on the knees for sure. Like, don't get me wrong, if you squat and you squat heavy, your knees are gonna pay an ultimate price at some point if there are years of squatting like that. And without getting into the whole knee component, your lower back with a belt and with proper breathing and with proper stability and with a mature spine and not being straight up and down with a slight lean forward is actually going to be very healthy for your back. I know that's a controversial statement in some realms, but I promise you that if you're squatting, and that's the whole idea with form, is if your form is good and you're actually loading your glute and hamstrings, you'll almost never feel it in your lower back until you're starting to squat to fatigue, which I don't recommend. I think if you can do, say, 75% of your known 1 rep max, we're just putting an example out there. So if my known 1 rep max at a back squat is 350, I'm just throwing a number from back when I used to be active in CrossFit back in 2012, 13. So if mine was 350 pounds at a 1 rep max known, well, then I'm going to put on something like 280 pounds and I might do 6 repetitions, and there's no need for a 7th. There's no need for an 8th. That's all mental fortitude and mental toughness. Is it necessary? I don't know. In the short term, mental fortitude, mental toughness, and psychological victories are very important. I do believe so. In the long term, it is quite debilitating, and it is what we call overtraining, or I shouldn't have done it, and you suffer the consequence. Another thing that I was going to get into about, again, form, and the second component is the deadlift. If you're deadlifting, barbell, you got the cross grip, you got the straight grip, you got the hook grip. And if you, again, can prep and load the back offload the back and load the glutes and hamstrings properly as you're pressing the barbell into the floor as it rises up through the legs, though there is a lot more pressure still on the low back, and at a heavy weight, it is not recommended, certainly, in my opinion, at any age. But if you can do it, again, at a safe weight with good repetition where it's not really straining the back and you can really load your glutes as you pull off the ground by pushing the barbell in is a good cue I used to hear. Keeping it not so close to the shins, but not too far away from the body either. You don't want to be far away from the body, but a big misconception is that you should be scraping it against your shins. What you'll notice if it's too close to you, you'll also notice that loading of the lumbar. I actually have a squat and a deadlift video that I'll try to link in the description here. Hopefully they are there below. I think a lot of people lifting will get a lot of benefit from watching those 2 videos. So I don't have to do any cutaways here because I don't frankly have the time, but I want people to understand what a good squat looks like, what a good deadlift looks like, and that is the overall message. So now that I've covered the 2 components, it's yes, the form matters the most, but a mature spine also matters a lot. And then understanding that if you're going to mess around and look for 1 rep max, sort of psychological pushing through 1 more repetition situations, there has to be only a short-term gain that is worth it to you, and understand that with a lot of experience as a person that did that, and a lot of experience now as a chiropractor and person that treats a lot of people who have a lot of devastating lower back injuries from both squatting and deadlifting, this is what I have seen, and I believe the key lies into understanding that if you don't have a devastating injury and you can tolerate about a 75% of a known 1 rep max, I think you can get a lot out of it doing it the right way, where I think pressing a little too hard is usually going to lead to injury. And I really do, again, to wrap this up here, young people, adolescent, teenagers should not be loading barbells, in my opinion, at all. I believe calisthenics, and when I say calisthenics, you're talking jumping jacks and push-ups. We're talking about training as if you are going to be a gymnast. We are talking about actually having a strong core. We're talking about L-sits. We're talking about pistol squats. We're talking about pull-ups, muscle-ups, actually doing things like overhead squats and doing things like fingertip push-ups, actually having a very strong core by using flexibility mixed with certain shoulder and ankle stability and hip stability. Sorry, it would be hip mobility, it would be ankle stability, and it would be shoulder stability and not just mobility, to be able to have a long lever or a barbell, or your hands or a bar of some kind far away. When you engage your core and build explosive hips, you can build a lot of explosive strength. So that's another great point. I should make a video just on explosive strength in calisthenics so young people can understand how beneficial that is, because I really want to encourage parents of younger people to start going to the schools and sort of insisting that we stop getting these, one or two trainers or coaches with eyes on, 30, 40 athletes at a time, and watching them do 6 reps at 80% or something. I mean, this is crazy. And we can't have young people's spines compromised like that. It's compromised enough already doing a contact sport, which again, we could talk about soccer, football, and I'm probably missing one or two, but in track and field, if you're jumping and landing or throwing a shot put or a discus, and these are things that a lot of high school athletes are doing at a high level and risking their spines, risking their limbs. And they're doing it for what? Some glory, a shot at a scholarship. I mean, that again, other topics, but tying it back into the squat and the deadlift, I've made my case. I do think they are very necessary for older adults and developed spines. I like that it's something that's done. And based off everything I said in the video, I hope that this brought you some information and informative views. So if you need anything, reach out. And again, I hope the descriptions are in the, or I hope the links to the squat and deadlift form videos are in the description. Thank you guys.